It was a routine evening, the kind that had become so familiar to me over the past few months. I worked a standard 9-to-5 office job, and after a long day of paperwork and meetings, I had a few rituals to unwind. One of those rituals was a trip to Walmart, just a mile away from my apartment. It was convenient, affordable, and provided the fresh ingredients I needed to cook a healthy dinner every night. Usually I bought only a few items, some vegetables, protein, and a few pantry essentials. It wasn't a major shopping trip, just something to tide me over until the next time. The store was typically busy around the time I arrived, between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., so I never paid much attention to the employees. But then one day, something unusual happened. As I was browsing the produce section, an employee, a large man with a small dark beard and a friendly demeanor, greeted me with a cheerful hello. He looked at me with an odd familiarity, but I shrugged it off. Perhaps he was just one of the many employees who had been working there for a while. We exchanged pleasantries, and I moved on with my shopping. The next time I went to Walmart, I encountered him again. He greeted me and we had a brief conversation. He seemed very friendly, and asked how my day had been. It was nothing out of the ordinary, just small talk. Over the next few weeks, I began to see him regularly during my shopping trips. Every time I stopped by the produce section, he would be there, greeting me with that same warm smile, asking how my day was going. He had this uncanny ability to show up right when I was in the area, and our conversations always followed the same pattern. At first I didn't mind it much. He was just being friendly after all, and it was nice to have a bit of human interaction after a long day. But soon I began to notice something strange. His questions became more personal, questions that made me uneasy. He asked about where I worked, where I lived, and what my plans for the evening were. It seemed harmless at first, but after a while, I started feeling uncomfortable. Why was he asking me these questions? Wasn't it just small talk? It all started to feel a little off. One day, as I was walking through the aisles, he approached me again. "How's your day going?" he asked, as usual. But this time, he didn't stop there. He asked if I was seeing anyone, and then out of nowhere, he asked for my phone number. I froze. My stomach churned as I tried to process what had just happened. He was a stranger, and I didn't feel comfortable giving him my number. I politely declined, but he seemed to take offense. He became visibly upset, his body language shifting from friendly to cold in an instant. As I tried to explain myself, he simply turned and walked away without another word. I finished my shopping and checked out, still shaken by the encounter. As I left the store, I noticed that he was no longer inside, but something wasn't right. I had parked in the far corner of the parking lot, and as I got into my car, I saw him sitting in a vehicle not too far from mine. My heart raced. Was he just on a break, or was he following me? I tried to shake off the thought and drove home. But then, as I pulled out of the parking lot, I noticed that he was following me. He made the same turns I did, following me as I drove through the streets. My mind raced. Was this just a coincidence? Or was I being I drove around my apartment complex, trying to lose him, but no matter where I went, his car followed me, tailing me at a safe distance. Eventually I had to make a split-second decision. I sped up and took a sharp turn, cutting off another car in the process. My heart pounded in my chest, as I realized I had managed to lose him, but I wasn't safe yet. I wasn't sure if he was still out there, watching me. I made my way back to Walmart, determined to confront someone about this bizarre encounter. At the customer service desk, I explained what had happened and described the man, but when they checked the employee records, they told me that no one matching his description worked there. The man wasn't a Walmart employee. He must have been wearing the blue vest to deceive me. My skin crawled, as I realized that I had been followed by a complete stranger, someone who had clearly taken an unhealthy interest in me. The store promised to keep an eye out for him, but I didn't feel much better. The sense of dread lingered as I drove back to my apartment, carefully checking my surroundings. Since that day, I've never returned to that Walmart, and I don't know if I'll ever feel safe going to one again. The memory of that encounter, the friendly smile, the uncomfortable questions, the sense of being watched still haunts me to this day. It was a quiet weeknight at Walmart. The kind of evening when most people are either settling in at home or out doing last-minute shopping. The store was less crowded than usual, almost eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of fluorescent lights overhead, and the distant sounds of a few customers pushing carts down the aisles. I had just finished a long day of work, and was only there to grab a few quick items. Nothing too extravagant, just enough to make the evening more bearable. I made my way through the store, weaving in and out of aisles until I reached the fitness section. I was in no rush, casually looking at the products, when I noticed something on the shelf, a massage gun. I wasn't planning on buying one, but I had been considering it for a while. I stood there for several minutes, reading the label and debating whether it would be worth the price. Suddenly I heard voices from the next aisle. It was coming from the toy section, not far from where I was standing. At first I didn't pay much attention. There were always kids running around in Walmart, begging their parents for toys, so I thought nothing of it. But then I overheard a man's voice speaking to a child. "I'll buy you this toy if you come with me," he said. It caught me off guard. My initial assumption was that this man was simply a father talking to his child, maybe trying to coax her into getting something she wanted. But then I heard something that made my skin crawl. The man's voice again, but this time saying, "Your mom said it's okay." That didn't sit right with me. I had a strange feeling in my gut, one of those instincts telling me something was off. I couldn't shake the thought that this might not be the child's father. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. Should I intervene? Was I just overreacting? The man's words echoed in my mind. Something didn't feel right. I couldn't ignore it, so I made a decision. I walked slowly towards the toy aisle, my heart racing. As I turned the corner into the aisle, I saw them just a few feet away from me. The man, wearing a black jacket and a winter hat, was holding the hand of a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 5 or 6. They were walking towards the other end of the aisle, and the man's grip on the child's hand seemed a little too firm. I didn't know what to think. Was I jumping to conclusions? I had to be sure. My mind raced, and I found myself walking towards them, trying to appear casual. As I approached, I picked up a random stuffed animal from the shelf. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady despite the nervous energy bubbling inside me. The man turned around, his expression blank. "I wanted to ask if this would be a good gift for my niece," I continued, holding the toy out in front of me. He looked at me for a moment, surprised, then quickly responded. "I have no idea," he said, his voice cold. "We really need to go." Without another word, he began to walk away, dragging the girl with him. I felt my pulse quicken. Something wasn't right. I wasn't sure if I should trust him, but my gut was telling me this situation wasn't innocent. The child seemed too quiet, too compliant. The whole thing felt off. As I started to turn away, I heard a woman's voice calling out, "Sarah." The voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to send a wave of relief through me. I turned, spotting a woman further down the aisle. "Sarah?" she called again, her voice more frantic now. My heart sank. It was the girl's mother. I rushed toward the woman, telling her what I had seen. She looked horrified. "That's my daughter," she said, her face pale. We both started running towards the front of the store, our footsteps echoing in the silent aisle. When we reached the front, we saw the man and the little girl at the self-checkout, the man nervously attempting to buy the toy. The girl's mother ran towards them, shouting, and the man froze. In a panic, he tried to justify his actions, claiming he was only being nice and trying to buy the toy, but it was clear no one believed him. As the situation escalated, he bolted, sprinting out of the store, leaving the mother and her daughter behind. I stayed with the mother until the police arrived, making sure the girl was safe, and reunited with her mother. It turned out that the little girl had wandered off while her mother was shopping elsewhere in the store. The man had seen the opportunity to exploit the situation, and luckily my intervention had prevented something far worse from happening. Even now, I think about that moment, how close that little girl came to being in the wrong hands. It was a chilling reminder that things aren't always what they seem, and sometimes you have to trust your instincts, even when they don't make sense. It was around 3 a.m., and I had just finished my late-night shift at work. Exhausted and hungry, I decided to stop by Walmart. On my way home, it was one of those nights where nothing seemed right, but I had to push through. The familiar fluorescent lights and empty aisles greeted me as I entered. The store was mostly deserted, with only a few employees stocking shelves and an occasional late-night shopper. I had been to Walmart countless times before, but something felt off tonight. The quietness of the store was almost eerie, and the hum of the overhead lights echoed through the empty aisles. I was hoping to grab a quick snack from the snack aisle, something simple, and then head home to get some sleep. As I wandered the aisles, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I turned a corner, only to find a man standing at the far end of the aisle. He was tall, wearing a black Adidas sweatshirt, and he didn't seem to be looking at anything in particular. His eyes met mine, and I felt an unsettling chill run down my spine. There was no reason for him to be standing there. He wasn't looking at the shelves, just staring at me, his face expressionless. I shook it off, hoping it was just my imagination playing tricks. But as I continued down the aisle, I couldn't escape the sense of unease that clung to me. I grabbed a bag of trail mix, trying to focus on the simple task of picking out food. Yet every time I looked up, the man was still there, standing at the end of the aisle, his eyes fixed on me. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, like he was waiting for something. I tried to ignore him, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Every time I turned a corner, I caught glimpses of him following me, his gaze never leaving me. It was as if he was moving with purpose, keeping a calculated distance, but always in my line of sight. My heart began to race. Why was he following me? What did he want? I decided to make my way to the back of the store, hoping to shake him off. As I walked, I kept glancing over my shoulder, but the man was always there, just behind me, never too far away. He seemed to be tracking my every move. I started to walk faster, my mind racing with thoughts of what to do. I needed to get out of the store, but the man was right behind me. When I reached the checkout area, I quickly approached the only open register, hoping to check out and leave. The man was still following me, but this time, I noticed he didn't go to any of the other registers. Instead, he walked straight toward me. My heart skipped a beat. He was getting closer, and there was no way I could escape. I didn't want to be rude, but I didn't know what to say or do. The cashier noticed my discomfort but didn't seem to understand the situation. The man stood beside me for a moment, and then out of nowhere, he offered to pay for my item. I froze. Why would he want to pay for my things? It didn't make sense. My instincts screamed at me to say no. I quickly declined, trying to remain calm. "No, thank you," I said, my voice shaky. "I'll pay for myself." Without a word, he turned and walked away, but he didn't leave the store. He just seemed to drift into the clothing section, his presence lingering like a shadow in the dimly lit store. I grabbed my bags and walked quickly to the exit, my senses heightened, feeling like I was being hunted. As I made my way out the door, I glanced back one last, and then I saw him. He was standing by the entrance, staring directly at me. He waved. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my stomach. I rushed to my car, my pulse pounding in my ears. As I started the engine, I noticed something horrifying. He was running, full sprint, straight toward my car. My heart stopped. I was so confused, so terrified. Why was he running at me? Was he going to hurt me? I hit the gas and peeled out of the parking lot, not looking back until I was safely on the road. I drove faster than I ever had, unsure of what to do or where to go. The thought of that man still haunted me, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had narrowly escaped something far worse that night. From that day on, I couldn't bring myself to go back to that Walmart. The memory of the man running at me with such intensity stayed with me for a long time. I never found out who he was or what he wanted, but I would never forget that night. Some things are better left unexplained, but my instincts told me to stay far away from that store in the future.